Hi, Room 15. It is Wednesday, May 27th, 2020. So we are going to be doing our last lesson on fractions, and we're going to describe a whole by the number of equal parts. So our learning targets are, we can describe a whole by the number of equal parts as 2 halves, 3 thirds, and 4 fourths. And then we could describe equal parts as halves, thirds, and fourths. So let's review halves, thirds, and fourths. So remember, halves means there are 2 equal parts in a shape. So we have a rectangle here. I'm going to partition it into 2 equal parts. Thirds, that means there's 3 equal parts. And I have vertical lines to create 3 equal parts out of my whole rectangle. And then fourths means I have 4 equal parts, so I have a rectangle. And then I'm going to partition it using vertical and horizontal lines to create 4 equal parts. So look at this part of a circle. Is this showing a whole circle? You're right, it is not. So what do we need to complete the circle? Right now I only have 1/2 of a circle. So I need another part to complete my circle. So we need another half. Because 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 1 whole circle. So if I were to have 1 whole circle and I drew a line kind of down the center like here, this would be 1/2 right here. This would be 1/2 right here. So since 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 1 whole, we can also call the parts 2 halves because there are 2 1/2 pieces that make 1 whole. So remember, right here on this side, what we started with, this is one of our halves. This, over here on this side is the other half. So we have 1/2 plus 1/2, and 1/2 and 1/2 equals 2 of them. So you can call that 2 halves, and that's how you write it right there. So another way to describe 1 whole, if you have 2 parts, would be 2 halves. So let's look at the parts of a rectangle. Each part shows 1/3 of a rectangle. So how many thirds do you see all together? So think of it. It's saying thirds. And right now we see how many thirds. So yes, you see 2 thirds because there are 2 parts out of 3 total parts. But remember, we are trying to describe thirds and we see 2 of them. So think, we're trying to create 1 whole. So how many more parts do we need to make 1 whole if we need 3 total parts? So I know it does look like a rectangle right now. Like I'm going to outline it. It does look like a rectangle, but it's not complete. It is not 1 whole because we want thirds. So let's take a look at what we need to add on to make this 1 whole. So you need a 1 more third piece to complete the whole, because 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 equals 1 whole, or 3 thirds also equals 1/3. So now you can see that rectangle shape. And now we say 3 thirds because there are 3 parts in this rectangle that create 1 whole. So 3 thirds also can equal 1 whole if you have 3 total parts. So now let's look at some other shapes to practice how to describe 1 whole. Okay, so now I'm going to work with shapes that are going to show 1/4. So take a look at this. This is 1/4 and it kind of looks like a square. And remember, because I'm using fourths, I'm going to have 4 total parts. So I have 1/4 right here, and I'm going to add on. This is 2/4 because there are 2 total parts. And then there are 3/4. And I'm kind of making like a square shape, if you can see. And then how many more pieces do I need to add on to complete my shape that it shows one whole? So if you said one more, you are correct, because as you see, there's this blank space. But because it is fourths. So you can describe this as 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4, or you can say one whole. And this is creating a square shape, okay? So if we partitioned it, like on a piece of paper, it would look like this. So, we might have like our square shape that looks like this. And then you can partition it like this, right? So this is 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, and 1/4. Okay? So then 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 equals 4/4, which also equals one whole. Okay? So now I'm going to look at some circles. Okay? So I'm going to show you a whole circle first that I traced. Okay? So this is what the one whole looks like. Now, first I'm going to work with thirds. Okay? When it comes to circles, it's very important to look at how you partition it, because you want to make sure that each part is the same size and the same shape. Because remember, we're working with equal parts, and equal means same size and same shape. So here is one piece. This is 1/3, okay? So now think about it. Look at that blank space that I have not covered up, but in my circle. How many more pieces do you think I need to add on in my circle to create one whole? So remember, I'm talking about thirds right now. Thirds. So I only have 1/3. So now I need to add on 2 more, because 1/3 plus 2/3 plus 3/3. 3 equal parts. That's why we call it thirds. So it's 1/3. If I'm looking at the fractions, it's 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3. Okay? Or you could write 1 and then the word third, which equals 3/3, because there are 3 parts out of 3 total parts, right? So you could say 3/3, or this is how you write that fraction, 3/3 equals 1 whole, okay? Now, if I were to draw this in my circle, remember, I would go like this, because this is showing that each piece is the same size and same shape. Some of you partitioned your circles like, let me draw it down here real quick. Some of you partitioned your circles like this. This is not correct, because as you can see, let me color it in. Like this piece right here, this part is not the same as this part. Okay? And if I were to take this apart, it looks like this. And this piece right here looks like this. These are not the same size and not the same shape. So this would not be the correct way to partition a circle if you're using fourths. Even if you're using thirds. If you're partitioning a circle into thirds, this is really the only way to do it, okay? And it kind of looks like a little piece of pizza, okay? Especially because pizza is round. So now I'm going to look at 4. So I'm going to go back to my one whole, okay? And then I'm going to partition it using little pieces, but this time I'm going to use fourths, okay? So remember, fourths. So I have 1/4 right now. Think about how many more pieces do I need to show one whole. So I'm going to add on. I have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4, okay? So if I'm writing that, I'm going to write 1/4. That's how you write the fraction, because it's one part out of four total parts. And each is 1/4, okay? 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 equals 4/4, okay? Or you could write 1/4, and if I'm adding on, this would be 2/4, because it's two parts. This would be 3/4, and then this would be 4/4. So if I'm trying to create one whole, I could write 4/4 as a fraction, or I could write it as the words 4/4, which also equals one whole, okay? And remember, this is, if I were to draw it on my circle, I could draw that horizontal line and my vertical line. Now, even if I draw it like this, it's the same exact thing, okay? This looks like a plus sign. This looks like an X. But if you see this top circle, if I kind of rotate it, now it looks like that X shape, right? It's the same exact thing, no matter what you do in a circle. And the reason why is because it's round versus like a square or a rectangle that has straight lines, okay? So if it's a round shape, no matter how you partition it, each piece is going to look the same, okay? Now, you are going to have to figure out if you only have one part of a shape. You need to figure out how many more you need to draw to add on. So let's look at a part of a rectangle. Or if I have a whole rectangle, I'm going to use a rectangle that might be like this shape. So this would be showing one whole. But let's say that I'm only going to, and I'm going to use fourths, okay? So I have fourths, which means I have 4 total parts. But let's say that we only have a part that looks like this. And this is 1/4. Okay? And I need to create the shape so that it looks like this rectangle. All right? So now I need to add on, remember that it's fourths, I have 4 total parts, but I only have 1 right now. So I need 3 more, okay? So I'm going to draw kind of like, almost like my parts like this. And I'm going to add on to that rectangle so it looks the same as this top one right here, okay? So this would be 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4. And then this should equal 1 whole, because I have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4. And 4/4 is the same as 1 whole, okay? So now let's take a look at what you're going to be doing today. So you're going to be working with fractions and shapes again, okay? Just like what I just showed you. So you need to identify the shaded area. Remember, shaded means how many parts are shaded. So look at it. It's halves, and I only see 1 half shaded, so I'm going to write 1. This circle, I see 2 parts that are shaded, so I'm going to write 2 halves. So now you need to circle the shape above that has a shaded area that shows 1 whole. Remember, 1 whole means the whole thing would be shaded, so that would be this shape right here, not this shape, because it doesn't show the whole thing shaded. Question C. Now you need to just identify how many parts are shaded once again. This is 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. Then question D, circle the shape above that has a shaded area that shows 1 whole, or 1 whole is the whole thing shaded. So I'm going to circle this shape because it has no unshaded areas. Question E, you're just going to, once again, identify the parts that are shaded. This is 1/4, 4/4 because we see that there are 4 parts shaded, 3 parts, and 2 parts. Okay? Now, circle the shape above that has a shaded area that shows 1 hole. Once again, it is this shape because it has the whole thing that is shaded. So remember, you're working with 1 hole today, focusing on 1 hole. Now, what fraction do you need to color to shade 1 hole? So it's asking what fraction do you need in order to create 1 hole, which is what we just did. So if you need to, shade it in and see how many parts you shaded. I shaded 1 part and I see halves, so it's 1/2. Okay? Question B, I need to shade in 2 parts, but it's 3 total parts, so I shaded in 2/3 because it's 3 total parts. Okay? Question C, I'm shading in 1, 2, 3, but I see that there are 4ths because it's divided into 4 parts, so I shaded in 3/4. Okay? Question D, I'm going to shade in 2 parts. Once again, this is 4ths, so it's 2/4. Question E, I'm going to shade in 2 parts again. So this would be 2/4 because there are 4 total parts. And then the last question, I'm going to shade in 1 part, and it's halves because there are 2 parts. Halves. Okay? Now, the bottom part, you need to So this bottom part, you will not, so this bottom part, you do not need to complete because we are not having you complete this part, but I'm just going to do it so we can do some practice. This is 1 hole, draw 1 hole. This is 1/2, excuse me. So halves, that means there are 2 total parts. So I need to draw 1 more part to draw 1 hole, okay? So once again, you are not doing this on your seesaw assignment. I'm just going to go over it so we can practice 1 hole. Here it shows 1/3. So remember, you need 3 total parts. So I need 1, 2, 3. Okay? So that would show 1 hole because it's thirds. And then C, it's 1/4. So I want to have 4 total parts. I'm going to draw 3 more to create 4 total parts to draw 1 hole. Okay? All right. So let's go to your assignment on Seesaw. You are going to be looking for the assignment that is fractions. Okay, so let's look for your assignment on Seesaw. You're looking for the assignment that says fractions described by the number of, I got cut off. Equal parts. Fractions describe a whole by the number of equal parts, okay? So once again, you are going to identify the shaded area on question 1A. So you're just writing how many parts are shaded. I would use the pencil tool to just fill in that blank. Then you need to, don't forget this part, you need to circle the shape above that has shaded 1 hole. So just use the pencil tool and draw a circle around either this shape or this shape that shows 1 hole. And then question C, same thing, write how many parts are shaded. Question D, use the pencil tool or the highlighter tool to circle which one is shaded that shows 1 hole. Same with question E, write the parts that are shaded and then circle which one that shows 1 hole. Page 2, question 2. What fraction do you need to color to show 1 hole? So I would, if you need to, but you can clearly see the unshaded part, okay? So you can even like do a text box and write whatever. So like it might be 2/3 or 1/2, and then you can drag it over, okay? So, and then at the bottom part, you're not doing that bottom part that I showed you. Okay, my friends, and then click the green check when you're done. Good luck.